welcome. Here at the Amlet podcast, we've reached the final episode of our journey through the Navajo Creation Story. Over the course of these episodes, we've watched worlds emerge one after another. We've witnessed the creation of first man and first woman, the coming of ceremony, weaving. God, that feels like a hot minute ago. Sacred mountains, the sun, moon, stars, mortality, and changing woman herself. But the fourth world still carries one great problem. Those monsters that appeared in an earlier section still remain. The people continue to live in fear, naturally. The creation story's ending introduces the figures who will eventually restore balance. In this episode, we witness the miraculous conception and birth of what's called the hero twins. Our guiding question for episode 14 is: why does the creation story end not with a completed world, but with the birth of children? Let's read to find out. Begin in the first paragraph of the last section and take notes if you wish. Soon after that, Changing Woman wished for a mate. Every morning when the sun rose, she lay on her back until noon, her head to the west and her feet to the east. At noon, she went to the spring. She lay under the ledge and let spring water drip over her body. She took place each day for 4 days. On the fourth day, she heard a sound behind her and turned and saw a young man on a great white horse with black eyes. It had a long white mane and pranced above the ground and not on the earth itself. The bridle and the saddle were white. The young man's moccasins and leggings were also white. The rider spoke. You lay toward me each morning until noon. When I am half over the center of the earth, you go to the spring. Your wish could not have two meanings. Go home and tell your father to build a brush hogan to the south of your home, fill a basket with meal and set it in the hogan. Make a line of pollen from east to west across the basket on top of the meal. Make a line of pollen from north to south drawn around the basket. You and your father must sit there late into the night. He will then go home to his wife, and you must stay there alone. Well, so a stranger comes to town, and he is a seemingly handsome person on a horse and gives her this kind of cryptic, very detailed commands. So, in this first paragraph of this last section that we're reading of the Navajo Creation Story, Changing Woman now reaches yet another stage in her life. And we all maybe can remember this for ourselves, but she wishes for a companion. Unlike earlier relationships in the creation story, her desire is presented very intentionally instead of an accident. It's very direct. Each morning, she lies with her feet toward the east and her head toward the west until noon. Her body follows the path of the sun. At midday, she moves to the spring where water falls over her body. The passage joins sunlight and water, the two great life-giving forces on Earth that have appeared throughout this creation story. The sequence repeats, of course, for 4 days, and the young man arrives on a white horse. The color white has repeatedly been associated with dawn, purity, sacredness, and the East. And although the passage never names him directly, the description and his words identify him subtly as the sun itself. So, one detail that stands out to me is that the horse moves above the ground, like levitating. The rider belongs to the earlier landscape, but it's not fully bound by it. The sun says that changing woman's daily actions could have only one meaning, so he's reading between the lines. Rather than approaching her directly, he interprets the ritual she has already been performing. The relationship begins through mutual recognition, which is really nice. And instead of an immediate union, the sun gives instructions. The brush hogan, the basket of meal, and carefully arranged pollen all become part of another ceremony. I'm just tied to my seat. So let's continue with the text and see what happens next. So changing woman returned home and told what had happened to her parents. First man said that it could not be true, but first woman said that it was indeed the message of a holy being and they must obey. And so, first man and changing woman prepared the hogan and the basket and waited long into the night. Finally, first man returned home. When changing woman returned home in the morning, first man asked her at once, "Who came last night?" The girl said, "No one came, but some of the meal has been taken." The same thing happened the second night and the third. On the morning after the fourth night, the girl told first man, "I saw no one, but someone touched me and I was moved." 4 days later, changing woman said, "Mother, something moves within me." First woman answered, "Daughter, that must be your baby moving." Oh my goodness. So, changing woman tells first man and first woman that um, this weird thing has kind of happened. First man doubts the story, but first woman believes it immediately. Maybe it's a girl thing, who knows? But the two respond differently to unusual events. The family follows the son's instructions exactly. Each night, first man eventually leaves and changing woman remains alone. The pattern is repeated, yes, 4 times. The meal is disturbed, but no visitor is seen. And on the fourth night, changing woman says only that someone touched her and she was moved, like some sort of sacred mystery. 4 days later, she feels movement within her. First woman immediately understands, and without hesitation, she identifies the movement as a child. A baby. Another baby. There's so many babies at the end of this story. The man has wait so long. So throughout the creation story, first man frequently serves as, or excuse me, first woman frequently serves as the interpreter of bodily experience. She recognizes what is taking place before others do. Very wise lady. So I'm so excited. We've made it to the closing paragraph of not only this section, but the whole creation story of the Navajo on our reading list. So let's savor it. On the 9th day, changing woman felt her birth labor begin. Talking God appeared carrying a rope of sunbeam. Water sprinkler, the rain god, appeared carrying a rope of rainbow. Saying nothing, the two beings gave one end of each rope to changing woman and silently bid her pull them with each spasm of labor. This began the custom of giving a rope to a woman who is in labor. A baby boy emerged, and talking God took it aside and washed it and severed its cord. A second baby boy emerged, and Water Sprinkler took it aside and washed it and severed its cord. And severing that cord of our last little bit of time with the translated text of the Navajo Creation Story. So, the pregnancy lasts only 9 days. Wouldn't that be nice? As with changing woman's own rapid growth, sacred births occur according to ceremonial timing in the story, not ordinary human rhythms. When labor begins, Talking God and Water Sprinkler appear without speaking. Instead, each carries a different rope. Talking God carries a rope made of sunlight, governing time and life, and Water Sprinkler carries one made from rainbow, which is a symbol of, kind of this movement between worlds. Changing Woman is instructed to pull the ropes during each labor pain, turning the ropes into instruments of endurance. The work of childbirth still belongs to the mother, and the ropes are there for support. The narrator pauses to explain that this event establishes the custom of providing a rope for women during childbirth. Like the first laugh ceremony and the first race, a cultural practice is traced back to a sacred origin. So the twins are born separately. Talking God watches the first child, and Water Sprinkler watches the second. The cords are cut, marking the twins' official entrance into independent life. For now, the twins are simply newborn children, not yet those hero twins who fight monsters. And so this is where our copy of the story ends. While there are accounts for what happens beyond the birth of the twins, we naturally stop here to reflect on how the twins embody Navajo values. The answer to the violent monsters that roam their homeland has evolved from catastrophe to the birth of a new generation. They become the hope the culture needs, with light and water at the core of survival. Here at the end of this journey, I think our most sweeping takeaway should be that creation is not a single event. It's not, according to the Navajo. It took us all of these installments to get to this point where we feel that creation is now complete before moving forward with these lessons in our well lived lives, which is yet again another point. And so, our framing question of the episode kind of needs to be answered. So, why does the creation story end with a completed world, but with the birth of children? Perhaps because every generation inherits an unfinished world. The people who entered the fourth world established ceremonies, homes, mountains, and traditions, but they cannot solve every problem by themselves. The next generation will face dangers their parents could not overcome, and they will inherit both the beauty and the brokenness of the world around them. The hope in it all is that there are still people who will rise to meet those problems. And with that hope, we see them teaching the next generation, preserving their cultural memory, and believing that those who come after us will continue the work that we have begun. And so I feel we did something together, and that makes me feel great for you guys. And I hope that this is a interesting piece that hopefully you've never read before, but if you have, you see it with new eyes. And I'd like to thank you for joining me through this whole journey of the Navajo Creation Story on the Amlet podcast. Until my next idea, keep reading, stay curious, and of course, take care.